Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the HashKey Capital call. My name is Michael Chen. I'm the Director of Investor Relations, and I'm the host for this call. Today, it is my pleasure to invite my colleague, investment partner at HashKey Capital, Xiao, who will be doing a fireside chat with Michael Tong, Managing Director, co-founder of Xterio, and Chief Strategy Officer of Funplus. I think it's going to be a very exciting discussion. We'll cover a number of topics that are very relevant, including Web2, Web3 games, mass adoptions, et cetera, et cetera. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to Xiao. But before that, I just want to say the usual disclaimer. Today's discussion is really for information sharing purpose only, and is not meant for financial or investment or tax advice. So without further ado, I'm giving the mic to my colleague, Xiao. Xiao, please take away.
Thanks, Michael. Hello, everyone. This is Xiao, a partner of HashKey Capital. And well, very happy to have Michael Tong here to discuss whether a Web2 game and a Web3 games. So yeah, to begin with, Michael, would you like to give a self-introduction and also a brief introduction about Xterio and Funplus?
Sure, of course. Hi, good morning, and thank you very much to Xiao and Michael. So I started my career in finance industry about 30 years ago, and I started my game business in about 20 years ago. I spent about 11 years in NetEase and become the Chief Operating Officer. And I also was a Series A investor in Funplus. And now I am actually the Chief Strategy Officer in Funplus, and at the same time, the CEO of Xterio. I spend most of my time in Xterio, actually. And the Funplus work is more like advisory work right now. But this is I would say this is the boring part. Maybe I can talk more about more interesting parts. So I've been playing games for about 45 years, and indeed I am I play a lot of games. I am also kind of the finalist in Pac-Man tournaments in Hong Kong. So I'm one of the very earliest. In some ways, it's an esports gamer, right? Esports player. I love publishing games. I love developing games. I've been, doing all kinds of work in the game industry, investing, developing, publishing, and everything. And so that's me. Right.
And yeah, thanks for that. Maybe a little story about Xterio and Funplus, like what drove you into Web3 and
Sure. Maybe I can introduce a bit more about Funplus first. So Funplus started off about 11 years ago. In the beginning, Funplus started, building games on the internet, of course, something like farming games that you can play on Facebook, and then later on you can play on mobile, of course. We also is the biggest strategy mobile game publisher in the world. We now have about 4 or 5 games that is very popular in the mobile world. 3 of the games are strategy games that are over billions, revenues. We have a huge number of downloads. We're talking about 200 million of downloads in all these games altogether. And that's Funplus. I think what is interesting for us, the question is why we want to spin off a separate division, especially for Web3, right? I think in short, we love new things. We love technology that is going to revolutionize the industry. That's the short answer. But of course, there is also the, in short, I love new technology as well. I'm looking at, the white paper from Nakamoto, and like when it was out, like more than 10 years ago, obviously. And I love, cryptocurrency. I've been reading about Ethereum back in 7 years ago, all these kind of things. And when we come to Web3, I think the two things that we always wanted to solve is that in the so-called Web2 world, or for traditional game companies, it is very difficult and getting more and more difficult and getting more and more costly to be able to reach the right customers. And at the same time, it is very difficult to build an IP that all players is going to love. When we come to Web3, I see opportunities to be able to solve these two major problems, and that is going to change and revolutionize the industry. Because, in Web3, everything's supposed to be transparent, right? So that we can understand our customers more easily and also be able to target them more precisely. And secondly, is that I would see that the idea of a DAO, and with the proper tokenization of license and the creations, I think we can build a new IPs for games, or actually more than games, and be able to build and spread the word of a new IP more easily. And of course, we are also fascinated by different kinds of new business model within the Web3 game industry. For example, of course, there have been games in the Web2 that the developers earn the commission of the trading, but in Web3 is more natural. And of course, we can also include play to earn, and we can talk a bit more about that later. And also, I've been talking about the idea of a DAO. I think the idea of a DAO is very interesting to me because when we look at the anime world in China, or also in Japan as well, like the anime world industry, you can see a lot of users who've been developing and creating contents for specific IPs. They write stories, like extra stories for the characters. They write songs. They have drawings and paintings of different kinds. So for the love of these characters and IPs, and they also spread, or promote these games with the love of it. And I think with the idea of a DAO in Web3, it is more natural that we can actually share or distribute the interests of all these players, users, communities together with smart contract, so that we can speed up the time of building an IP. So that's some of the reasons that we think is interesting for Funplus to spin off this business, Xterio, to go into Web3 games.
I see. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks for all the sharing. And yeah, you mentioned about building an IP. I suppose that's the biggest advantage of Web3 in terms of publishers' opinion. So could you go more into details, like why is it easier to build an IP from Web3 world? Maybe because the distribution channel is shorter, or maybe there are more involvement from user side?
Yes, I think it's mostly more involvement on the user side. Again, when we look at games like FGO, Fate, Orders, right? And, this kind of IP, of course, a lot of the important parts is built by the company or by the developers, the settings, the stories, and the graphics, and so on. But, when in Japan, right, like I think it's about 12 years ago, that these IPs can be used by all kinds of users, and that they will make it into like what we usually call AVG games. And these games are free of charge, right? And it becomes a very fast way of spreading the IP to a lot of users. And by then, when a lot of users like this IP, then on the other hand, when the games is being promoted later on, the games becomes very popular as well. But I think Web3 is actually not just that, it's going to be more than that, because we are also talking about, the IPs, not just for making games, but also in the future that we can use the IPs from, on the media, of course, there will be other entertainment medias like, books, movies, and TV series. But I think that's the simple part. But when we are building an IP for the future, I think we should be looking at not just books, IPs in the movies and so on, but we are also looking at digital goods. I'm going to use a word that hasn't been talked about for a few years, right? Metaverse, right? But I actually think that metaverse is actually much closer than 2 years ago. I think it's still very far away, but I can feel it's much closer now than a year or two ago. Obviously, because of the advancement in AI, because of the advancement of the hardware devices that we can use, we see from Apple, also because of probably autonomous driving, that people are going to spend more time in better screens. Of course, now a lot of us, a lot of people will be commuting using a handphone, right? But in the future, when people are commuting with autonomous driving, then I can easily imagine that you can have much better screens. Well, we don't. Maybe with VR, I don't know if they're going to use VR and sit in the car or something. But definitely much better environment for going into the the digital world, right?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, and also from user side, you're like very experienced player as well. So as a player, what do you think the biggest difference between a Web2 game and a Web3 game?
Right, I think I use the old way to answer this question first, right? Of course, we have all been talking about asset ownership, like transparency, interoperability, credibility across platforms and governance and all of these things, right? But it seems that none of these are happening. Nothing is happening, right? When I talk about these people, I think I'm a scammer, right? I actually think that it is going to happen, but it's just take a longer time to happen. I think because now that after a year or two, right? After people talk about after Axie Infinity or so, now it's more than 2 years, right? And I think all of these things, I think, is still valid, but still might be far away, but much closer again, right? The reasons are the following, right? Because when we look at the infrastructure improvements, everybody has this experience, right? When they first time register for games like I don't know, like Axie Infinity, DeFi Kingdoms, whatever, right? We have to spend, like, for a newcomer, we have to spend like half an hour or so to just start registering before actually playing the games. I think nowadays, because we can see that the wallets are more popular, and technology has become easier to use. I think onboarding has become much easier, I would say. I would argue that a newcomer can start playing a game of Axie somewhat like 5 minutes from 30 minutes. It's still far away, frankly, because you can start a game in any Web2 game in 20 seconds, I would say. But it's still a huge improvement, right? From 30 minutes to 5 minutes, right? which is a good thing, right? And then, of course, I think the game developers are also learning, including ourselves. We are also learning. We are trying to onboard users that is going to be more like traditional Web2 experience, so that they don't have to decide whether I need to buy an NFT to start playing the game, but they can, start playing the game like any other game, free of charge. And then while they're playing the games, then they can decide whether they want to have, NFTs, whether they want to have digital assets, or whether they want to have maybe play to earns, right? In the future, right? And so all of this, I think, altogether is increasing the popularity of Web3 games in the future, right? Right now, it's still still at the beginning. I would say still the beginning, and I think for going back to some of the main points of what Web3 game has been promising. I think some of the things that we have also learned that, of course, for example, like asset ownership. I think it's more important to be able to build a game where communities and trading is already very popular. And then we see that there's demand for the ownership of the assets. Because obviously, if there's no trade and no communities, why own something? There's no need to own something, right? For example, like transparency, where games that are more competitive in nature, that you want to know that, like for example, like the credibility as well and transparency as well, that you want to know the past of the players that you're competing, that if they have actually ever cheated, hacked, using a hack or something in their games. And then in terms of interoperabilities, that is the game is going to build with the mindset that these assets are going to be used in other places at all, right? So I would say that we are learning that the different promises of Web3 has to be used, and the demand has to be built slowly on into other things. And I think we are learning, and then I think one day that the player will be able to understand and be able to actually have the demand for all these so-called promises in the future.
Yeah, agree. By the way, what's your ideal eventual status of Web3 game? Yeah, you mentioned about interoperability. So maybe in the future, we can see a phenomenon that maybe the IP from, for example, NetEase can be also used into maybe a game from Nintendo, right? Is that possible, or?
I think it's possible. I think this just one step, right? If you own a gun in, let's say, in Fortnite, right, and then this gun can actually be used in other games from other developers. And then, of course, one of the most important thing is that there has to be kind of like an industry standard of what this asset means, right? I mean, besides having an address right now, that's how this, let's say, how this, weapons is going to be shown in other games. How is this 3D model? How is the color? And then that's the skins part, the cosmetic part. And you might also be able to get the data part, like how strong this game, how strong this weapon is, or, things like that. But I think that requires a lot of work, not just from, a platform or one game or one developers, but it's also kind of a collaborative effort for all, all of us to be able to build that. But we are seeing that, a lot of people are, trying to build this kind of standards. And I think one day that we can work together and be able to build a standard like that. But I would say that I would actually argue that between games, I would say it's still not may not be the most important, but is also, looking forward, is like a between worlds or between applications. For example, like, let's say because we are also building a game that is kind of like a pet collection game. So in the future, when I own a pet inside the game that we are developing, maybe that pet can be brought over to like the Sims, or maybe Sandbox, which is not exactly a game, but you can walk the pet in Sandbox. And I think this is actually something that can easily be implemented, especially if the economy or the benefit and interest is there isn't that much of a conflict, because some of these applications are going to be more like social applications, and then maybe I can bring the pet to a VR setting or XR setting in the Apple world, that is purely for making friends. I don't even have to like use the pets to fight other pets or something like that, right? Maybe someone can bring their pets in, like a garden, like a park or something, to just walk their pets. And maybe I can even bring it to office on the metaverse, right? Of course, right? Maybe while we are talking right now, having a Zoom meeting, that this pet is like running around beside me, and then things like that. So I actually think that the interoperability is not confined within just games, but in many other different applications. And I think this is where it's exciting for us to try to build a new IP, rather than, because if it's just an IP for one game or maybe two games, then I actually think it's not that exciting. I think it's exciting, but it's not that exciting. But the IP can be used in many, many different places and worlds, and that's really something that excites us. That makes me, get up in the morning and go to work. So that's the interoperable part, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I love the example of pets a lot. Well, so initially, maybe the pets is only a small casual game, but eventually it can be something like a pet as a service. It can be integrated into any use cases. Well, yeah, that's pretty exciting. Well, yeah. Speaking of like casual game or different kinds of games and IPs. So what the type of game do you think fit the best for Web3s? Because we've seen a lot of like SLG or mobile or casual games in Web3, but yeah, what do you think is the best in this industry?
Yeah, frankly, it's difficult to say right now, because we haven't seen any like a very strong proof right now, right? But I would say still looking at the things that we have just talked about, I would say that in terms of the asset ownership and interoperability, I think the most important thing is that it's a multiplayer game. Right. If it is a single player game, then I am not sure why I want to have the certificates that I own the assets, because I don't need to trade it. I don't know, maybe some people just want collecting some things, right? Maybe there's a small amount of people who wants that. But at the end of the day, I would say asset ownership is still related to that I show off what I own. Maybe is a way for me to not show off, but it's a way for me to show my identity, my taste, and things like that, right? And also that I will be able to trade with the community. So I would assume that multiplayer games with a lot of trading and lots of interaction between the players are more suitable for Web3 games. Right, and then I think there are games that is very suitable for Web3 is because of the credibility or understanding the users that is playing in front of you. First of all, because of the trading, and second of all, because of that you are maybe competing, right? You have like a PvP type of gameplay. So another game that we are building right now, which is like a first-person shooter game that you have to compete, and especially when you win, you will be able to loot the weapons of the other players. And that is that is like a high stake and high wager in this kind of gameplay. And it is very important that fairness and the credibility of other players have to be well settled. Otherwise we have problems, right? So I think it's important for this kind of game to have the Web3 part to be like the security, credibility, and then for multiplayer games to have the asset ownership and have the maybe interoperability in the future. And then we are also building two games that I say is more or less lets the players or the users to have the governance, right? Which is the pets game that I'm talking about. And then there's another game which is called Overworld, which is also a game that we are trying to build a totally new IP together with the users. So I think I wouldn't say that we know exactly what kind of games that is most suitable for Web3, because there are many different parts of Web3. But I think for some games that is suitable for some parts of Web3, and then for other games that is suitable for some other parts of Web3. So those are just some of my examples now, right?
Yeah, thanks for all the examples. So I suppose at least the social features is very important for Web3 games. So yeah, based on Web2 games paths, based on the paths of Web2 games and Web2 social, how long do you think the Web3 social will come into life?
I think it's I don't know how long, but as I said, I think it's much closer than before, right? And I think what is interesting is again, I think it's not just games that we are closer to Web3 and getting a lot of users into Web3. I think it's also again is a kind of a taboo word like metaverse, right? And AI as well, actually. I think it's actually quite easy to, as I said, the Apple device, the, autonomous driving and so on and so forth. And also, but by the way, autonomous driving is also driven by AI, actually, right? And all these devices and applications, I think it's going to, let's not use the word metaverse, but definitely digital goods creation will be a very important part of the overall economy. So I look at some of the numbers because we all know that game industry is already bigger than movies and music industry combined, right? Game industry may be still a bit smaller than TV to combine with advertising, but it's very close right now. So game is going to be, but if all of these are combined together, I think we are talking about somewhere around 1/5 of the car industry, automobile industry, right? Something like that. So I still think that because of the time that we're spending online right now, I would also call that we are spending time online right now. The use of building digital goods versus of that tangible goods is going to continue to increase. So like, for example, the car industry might be flat. Of course, there's like electronic car, but overall automobile industry is going to be flat, right? But overall digital world goods creation will continue to increase somewhat like 20% growth, right? So I'm sure that one day we'll be seeing the, okay, what's the GDP of digital goods and what's the GDP of tangible goods? And maybe someday we will see like a 50-50 or something like that. And I would say by that time that we will be very likely that we are kind of in the metaverse environment. I'm not saying that the metaverse is like a VR, but you know, we are more natural to spend time online. We have more ways of accessing things online. We have more ways to rewind our life. I'll be talking to AI Xiao. You don't even have to be here, and then but we are talking like a virtual idol or something like that. And I think it's going to be very different in the next 5-10 years time. Mostly because of the advancements in AI, right? And I also think about like when there are many different agents, like we're going to have use agents, right? We probably watch some videos about what it's like to have an auto GPT, right? I can ask auto GPT to help me to find out who in the Web3 world is the best in investing, right? And then maybe social names come out, right? And then, but you know, I can use AutoGPT to do that. And what are the portfolios that they're investing, and how can I reach them? Or you know, and then maybe there are other agents, and all these agents will definitely be communicating and transacting using blockchain technology, and especially mostly they are transacting in blockchain technologies, right? So you know, it's far away. Obviously, the things I'm talking is far away, but I think we start from game, and then you know AI, and then we can see a much bigger picture. And then what I want to stress is that the game that we are designing today will be an important part of the things that is going to happen in the next 10 years, rather than you know one game and then it's the end of this game. But I think that is not that interesting, right? But if it's a game that is going to be lasting for a long time, and the IP and the avatar or the pets that is going to last all the way to the metaverse, I think these are the things that is very interesting to us, right?
I actually like the new definition for metaverse. It's not necessary to be VR based or to be a virtual world. It can be in real world, but in a digitalized way. So it's like a digitalized real world. Yeah, I love it. It's even a broader concept than what we said today. Yeah. By the way, for the audience, if the audience, you guys have questions for Michael, you can type it into the Q&A section, and we can see it and we will answer it. And now I guess we can go a little bit back to Xterio and maybe Funplus. So yeah, you mentioned a lot of vision to maybe attract more users or convert more users into Web3. So what's the service of Xterio, and what kind of user experience you can provide?
Right. I think what is important for us right now is we're trying to build a platform that is going to both servicing the users, but at the moment, probably more importantly, to service you know, the game developers in the industry, because I think all of them are very hardworking, especially given that the current environment is not that friendly, and especially that we are all experimenting with different kinds of models. So you know, some of the things that we do with our partners is that, of course, we build a stack of, you know, like a crypto conversion tools for game developers, so that they can, you know, have tools that they can manage the data on chain, manage payment solutions with crypto and fiat, and and so on and so forth. We are also building data intelligence, and that will be able for developers to reach the users more easily. And we are also trying to convert that into kind of a AI experience or natural language experience, that the developers will be able to use natural language to find out, to query about what the data is like, rather than using like a SQL to find out data or to analyze the data. So I think we are building some technology stack, but I would say that a lot of people are doing that as well. So in some way, some of them are built in-house, but some of them are integrated with a lot of different partners in the industry, so that we can make it into a toolbox for the developers to find the users. I think finding the users is the most important. Like giving them money is very important, but that's not my work, right? That's your work, right? And then for them to find the users is our work. So we also build Launchpad. We also have very good exposure on the social media right now. We also have a very important part of the experience from Funplus, that we are very good at doing performance marketing, that we can find the users on the internet with low cost, right? And I think all of this together, all the tools that are building are mostly focused on helping the developers to find their users. That's really what we think about. And on top of that, of course, we also believe in digital identity. So we are building different kinds of program so that the users will be having a digital identity with us and with the credibility. And we call it XSOL, which is kind of a soul-bound token program that we are working on, so that people will know the wallets that you are playing against, or the person that you're playing against, what kind of people it is like, right? Have they played this kind of game before? Have they, do this and that before? Or maybe, and it's a very difficult work, because we are also trying to link between Web2 world and Web3 world. Some of the things that they have done on the games that they have played on, other platforms as well, right? So it's a linkage between that. And with all of this together, I think we're hoping that we'll be able to help our partners to find the players and the users more directly and more precisely. And for us as well, I think it's important not just to find the players, but also to find, I would say, the community or the DAO users, because it's not that difficult, right, to find wallets with a lot of money inside, right, or with a lot of assets inside, right? But I think it's not just money, right? I think it's like, for example, for the DAO that we wanted to build, that to promote new IPs, I think we want to have wallet address or players who have the love for a new IP, who will be able to promote it, who will be able to create contents. So if we are be able to find the users, not just looking at how much asset they have, but also of the things that they have done before, or maybe it is actually linked to a streamer or KOL that they have the ability to promote, right? And all these profiles will become more interesting and important for the whole digital economy. And that's something that we are building as well. We have different kind of programs to get people into the digital identity system. And I think that is going to be very fun. Again, for Xterio, I think one of the other things that most people are more interested about Xterio is because Xterio is a spin-off or incubated by Funplus, which is a traditional game developer, right? And I myself is also a game developer for a long time. Most of our staff or executives have been in the industry for a very long time, like Jeremy, who is with Jam City, who is with Ubisoft, and all these game developers. So I think we are, another interesting for us is we are also building games ourselves. We are building a few games. One is Age of Dinos, which is a strategy game that we have been using or utilizing Funplus capabilities in SLG or in Forex game development. And I think what is important or interesting is that we're not just building another Forex games, but we are building a Forex game that has the potential to become bigger than other Forex games because we are adding a layer on top of the free-to-play and the whales economy, but we are also adding a layer of earners economies. And that is going to have the potential to make it actually bigger than normal Forex games, right? It's harder, it's much harder, but it's also have a much higher potential, right? And then there's another game that we are working on, which is I've talked about, which is kind of in a gangster setting. It's a first-person shooters where we have a lot of innovative gameplay. But again, the vision of that is not just one game that is like a first-person shooters, but we have many different game modes. And then with the vision that in the future that it can grow into a world, kind of a world of outlaws, right? So it's much bigger than that. That's the gun that you're using today. It's not, okay, you can use this gun in different game modes, or maybe you can bring the gun into Fortnite, but it's actually a gun that will become a collectibles in the future when there's a world where people social, I don't know what happens in the world of outlaws, but maybe you can also make money, you can do many things in this world, right? I think it's interesting. And we're also building two other, more like a DAO, more like an IP building. One is Overworld that I have talked about. Overworld is it's actually one of the most talked about games on the Twitter recently. And it has got a lot of attentions on Twitter. I think we are trying to experiment with one thing, is that building a new protocol of NFTs, so that the NFTs owners will actually get the benefits of the future, I wouldn't say the future income, but the future popularity of this IP, so that there is a way to get the benefits of that. And I think I have found a way that we can do it properly and be able to do it in compliance of the security law and so on. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting. So that's for Overworld. And another one, which is I would codename as Xtepet. Right now, we haven't decided on the real name, but that one is going to use a lot of AI technology as well. So basically, as an NFT owner, that you can create new pets using AI, and these new pets can be kind of sold or kind of used in many different games and worlds that is going to be in the future. And all these pets are going to have a different personalities and settings. And we are going to also use AI that this pet is going to communicate with their players, much more like a emotion with emotions, rather than saying that I am an Autobot, I don't want to talk about this and that. They're going to have views. They're going to tell you who's going to win between Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, right? And then they're going to, I love Elon Musk more. And some of them is going to say, oh, I love Mark more, right? Rather than saying that I am an auto chatbot and I don't want to give views on this and that, right? So it's going to be more interesting. Of course, this is touching many different red lines, but I think this is just more interesting rather than being too conservative on that, right? So these are the things that we are working on right now. I would say that because we are also walking the walk ourselves in finding users, especially from Web 2 world and then now in Web 3 world. Of course, in the future, hopefully we don't say that's like Web 2, Web 3 world, right? It's just one world, right? And just like in China, when you talk about like two-dimensional world, right, which is like anime world, like 5 years ago, people talk about, oh, what kind of people are in the two-dimensional world, right? And then people is like, oh, they are like this and that. I don't think any people talk about like a two-dimensional world so much nowadays, right? It's basically the normal, right? And in the future, people are going to forget about this type of wordings or vocabularies, right? And I think the good thing would go for Web3 worlds, right? And in 5 years' time, nobody talk about Web3 world because it's going to be the normal world, right? And that's how I look at it.
Well, that's a very big vision and a very big picture. So would you like to share some roadmap or timeline? Like when can we see that happening?
Yeah, I think the first game that we are going to launch is going to be the Age of Dinos that we are working for some time already. We are going to look at the game's going to be launched somewhere around the later part of this year, closer to the end of this year. I think it's going to be very exciting for us. We also going to announce the pet project very soon. Indeed, we are looking at maybe somewhat like 2 weeks from now that we are going to announce what exactly it means. But the functionalities of that project is still building right now. We are announcing and trying to find like real founders that is interesting in building a new IP together with us. We are going to line up with some partners that we have been working together for a long time. We're also going to announce like what type of AI technology that we are going to use in this idea, right? And then of course for overworld that we might be able to mint the NFT very soon as well. We actually have prepared that and it looks really good. So these are some of the things that is closer within this year. For TTT, which is the first-person shooter game, we are actually going to have a beta test, I think this month, August, in like offline with in-person type of a beta test in Southeast Asia, and we are working on that. So things are, a lot of things are going on. It's been very exciting. It's been very fun. Yeah. And it's going to be more fun.
Impressive. Well, I think that will be all for the fireside chat. Let's leave more time to the audience because I saw a question in the Q&A section. It's from Tong. Yeah, he's asking, could you please share some successful use cases of bringing Web2 gaming IPs to Web3 space? And what does Web3 mean to big game developers like Square Enix, Sega, Epic Gaming, and more?
Yeah, I think I mean, frankly, I don't know of any like a very successful example right now, because I think what is interesting to me is building new IPs in the Web3 world with the Web3 technology, I would say. And you know, of course, I think bringing old IP or you know, like a traditional IP in the using the Web3 technology, I think some of them are still, I think a lot of people are still how to say, still experimenting in some of the games, and then maybe some of the famous brand as well, like but not a lot of very successful. You know, we see people like trying to do this with like Louis Vuitton is trying to do, they have the NFTs, right? And Starbucks, and then I think Nike, all of them are trying, right? But are they successful? I don't know. I think they are trying right now. And then we're seeing more people trying to do that. I think it's going to make sense, but I think at this moment, it's difficult because some people might be biased on how they look at Web3 at this moment, right? So it's difficult at this time. But I think that, you know, it will happen very soon. But for me, I think it's more important to try to build new IPs with the Web3 technology. I actually think that there's one, how to say, kind of a successful case, I would say, that is kind of working. Ni no Kuni, right? I think Ni no Kuni is a game that is kind of doing well in both Web2 and Web3 world, right?
Yeah, but what do you think IP? What does IP mean for those like Web2 game companies like Sega? Because they have a huge advantage on IP, and I think most of their trial are still like IP leasing and based on the existing IP to build Web3 games. So what do you think this kind of method?
I think I actually think the other way around. If I look at the history in mobile games, I think mobile games in the early days, that new IPs are born because these mobile games are very suitable for the mobile environment. For example, the like of Angry Birds, the like of Fruit Ninjas, and the like of Clash of Clans. And these games are actually more popular because they are made for mobiles. We actually saw a lot of games that is being made from old IPs into mobile, right? Some big companies, they try to convert or port their games from console into mobiles, but none of these games are as popular as the game I have just mentioned, which to them might be very small games like a Fruit Ninja, right? Temple Run. But but these games are more popular because they are made for the new environment. I think in the short term, it's more likely going to happen this way, that we're going to see web games that is built for Web3 become more popular. They may be like smaller games, but then the big IPs will only come or try to catch up like in a much later time. But even today, I mean, the biggest IPs on mobile are more likely to be like games made for mobile. I mean, there are some games that is catching up, but not a lot of them. One of the games that are catched up, of course, is like Fantasy Westward Journey, that is made from NetEase. They can convert from console into mobile, but a lot of the games are actually made for mobiles, natively.
Yeah. Okay. Agree. And there's a follow-on question from Tong. So, what is the what is holding people back from getting into Web3 games, and why some people have bias on Web3 games?
I think I don't know. I think that the question is getting to an answer itself, right? So so I would say that because you know in the early days, right? In the early days, a lot of for any industry, right, it's actually quite possible that there are a lot of bad actors, and that requires a lot of new regulations and this and that, right? And we are always in the debate of, should we have more regulations, or should we have more freedom or more liberty for developers to try out this and that, right? So we are kind of still in a chaos of there are some games, but some games are too innovative, right? and then some of the players got hurt, right? But I think it's we're just in the early days, and I think it's very normal. If you play any games, if you download any games in between 2009 in mobile, obviously not to the same magnitude as in Web3, but I can give you one very interesting example. In 2010, I think, there's one game on the Apple Store that cost, I think, cost $499 or something like that, US dollars, like especially high amounts of money, right? And inside the game, there's like nothing in it. It's just like a picture or graphics, and there's not even any gameplay. But some people buy it, and this game actually make Apple to stop this kind of a category of or this category of payment. So now that the highest payment is 99.99, right? But before that, actually, there are like a higher categories that you can enter the type of how much the cost of that game is going to be, and so I think early days for any industry, there are always some bad actors that's going to kind of hurt the users, right? But with regulations, or with mild regulations, and then and with the discipline of all the players, or the industry, things is going to evolve. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we have another question. So, will Web3 gaming involves AR, VR? Well, I think so far it's not necessary to involve AR and VR, but eventually, Michael, do you think they will be combined together, like blockchain plus AR, VR?
Yeah, I think it's just part of the overall technological evolvement, right? I don't think it has to involve AR or VR, but when the technology is there, then Web3 is going to go into AR and VR as well, right?
Okay, and maybe the last question here. So I see increasingly more general content creators are using AI nowadays. Could you expand a bit on what AI means to the game industry, especially in Web3 space?
Yeah, sure, of course. I think for one, it's interesting because AI is a liberation or democratization of knowledge. So people who weren't able to draw, but with good imagination and with the understanding of how to use AI, then people can make very interesting paintings or drawings with what they want to do, right? you can follow my Twitter. I use Midjourney all the time, and I post all kinds of pictures that I did in using AI, and a lot of them are actually is like over what I am imagining, or it's better than what I'm imagining, and I think it's a way for us to expand our creation capabilities, and so that we can create more new stuff and more things. The creativity of AI is much higher than most people thought, like 2-3 years ago. I think it's going to help us to push our edge of our creativity of humanities, and it's also a liberation of the capabilities of many different people. I mean, of course, a lot of people talk about like, people are going to lose job and this and that, right? Yes, I think it's going to happen, but it also transforms into a way that, for example, one of my colleague who is very good at, designing motions or designing animations for the characters inside the game, right? But now, because with AI, he has the capabilities of understanding like a concept design, understanding how to use the arts in many different ways, so that he can actually discuss and understand exactly what this motion should look like, rather than, in the old days, he just got a very dry and very boring requirements from his boss, right? So he actually moved up, from what he's doing, and I think the same goes for everyone. If you can understand AI better and how it can be used to your advancement, then I think you can actually do a lot more than before for anyone. Right?
And so there's another final question here. So how will Xterio collaborate with Binance in the future, as there was an announcement for the fundraising?
Yeah, I think what is interesting for us is Binance. They are investing 15 million into us. I think of course it's mostly that we are looking at building professional games, games that is going to expand like onboarding more people into Web3, and I think this is what they are really interested in us. And secondly is that we are putting a lot of effort in AI, including the use of AI in building games, including the use of AI in making new kind of gameplays, and also tools for other developers as well. I think, and of course, AI as a means to onboard Web3 players, Web2 players into Web3 as well. So I think these are the things that Binance is most interested in working together with us. And yeah, so building games, building tools with AIs and professional game developers, right?
Sure. All right. I think that will be all of the content today. And thanks, Michael, for all the sharing. Now let me give the host back to our Michael Chen.
No, just I listened to the whole time. Thank you very much, Michael, for hour long plus of thoughtful discussion. Like I love it, particularly the fact that you're both, of course, a business operator, investor, and also you mentioned you're a player. Been a long time. So I think that's really what a lot of projects funders are, right? It's a games built for the fans, for the users, by the fans and by the users. So thank you very much, and of course thank you, Xiao, for moderating and hosting this fireside chat. We will have a replay available in a couple of days that we'll post it on HashKey Capital's series of YouTube link. So for anybody who missed, for example, the first part or some parts, we will have a replay available. With that, I think that's a good end for today's fireside chat. Thank you again very much to Michael Tong and for my colleague Xiao. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.